Have you ever wondered why some people seem to walk through life with so much confidence, while others feel confused and lost? The secret often lies in something simple but powerful: self-knowledge. Knowing who you really are, understanding your emotions, recognizing your values, and understanding what drives you are key steps in transforming your life. And the truth is, without that clarity, it's really hard to make conscious choices, find purpose, and live a full life. In this video, I'm going to show you why self-knowledge is so important and how it can be the first step toward creating the life you want. We'll dive into not just the concept, but also the obstacles that keep you from truly knowing yourself and, of course, practical techniques to start this journey. If you've ever tried to change your life but always felt stuck, maybe what's missing is simply understanding who you truly are. So, stick with me till the end, because what's coming up might just be the key you need to kickstart that transformation. Ready to take the first step toward a life with more clarity, purpose, and direction? Let's dive into this self-knowledge journey together, because it could be the beginning of something truly life-changing. Self-knowledge is essentially the ability to understand yourself deeply, your emotions, reactions, beliefs, and behavior patterns. When you begin to truly know yourself, you realize how it affects every area of your life. Think about big decisions like changing careers, ending a relationship, or even something simple like adopting a new habit. All of these choices become clearer and more conscious when you know what you truly want and need. Without self-knowledge, you're more likely to live on autopilot, repeating patterns that aren't serving you. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine someone who's constantly unhappy at work. Without self-knowledge, that person might blame the company or their boss. But when they stop and reflect, they might realize they're actually seeking something more than just a stable job, maybe more creativity, freedom, or purpose. It's this awareness that allows for real change, because without knowing what's bothering you, it's hard to figure out where to go next. Self-knowledge also improves our relationships. When we understand our own emotions, we can communicate better about what we're feeling, and as a result, we build healthier connections. And this directly impacts self-esteem. The more you know yourself, the less you rely on external approval. Now that we understand why self-knowledge is so essential, there's a new question that comes up. How exactly do we start solving this? How do we tackle the obstacles that make this process challenging, and how can we overcome them? Let's explore together how to make this happen, because before we move forward, we need to know what's holding us back. Knowing yourself deeply sounds amazing, right? But if it were that simple, why do so many people still feel lost and directionless? The truth is, there are several obstacles that make this journey challenging, and understanding what they are is already an important step in overcoming them. The first big hurdle is the fast-paced routine. With the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we often get so caught up in responsibilities and tasks that we don't make time to look inward and reflect on who we really are. Have you noticed how routine pushes us into autopilot mode? Wake up, work, take care of the house, sleep, and start all over again. With this pace, it's hard to stop and ask yourself, what do I really want out of life? Another important obstacle is the fear of facing uncomfortable truths. It can be tough to admit that some decisions we made in the past no longer reflect who we are today. Facing that requires courage because it means being willing to rethink beliefs and even let go of things that no longer make sense. For example, my younger sister spent years in a relationship that made her unhappy, but she was afraid to leave because she thought it would mean failure. It wasn't until she started getting to know herself better that she realized staying in something that didn't serve her was worse than facing the fear of change. Also, limiting beliefs tend to be a silent barrier to self-knowledge. You know those phrases we sometimes repeat to ourselves like, "I'm not good enough," or "I always mess things up"? These beliefs, often formed back in childhood, prevent us from seeing our true potential. Identifying and questioning them is crucial for us to move forward in a lighter, more conscious way. Finally, we can't forget to mention vulnerability. Opening up to understand who we really are requires us to be honest, especially with ourselves. And that's not always easy, because so often society teaches us to hide our weaknesses. But it's by accepting that we're not perfect that we really start to get to know ourselves. And it's super important that we talk about how to take the first steps on this journey with simple, practical techniques that you can start using in your day-to-day life. Even after everything we've talked about, you're probably wondering, where do I even start? The good news is there are plenty of simple techniques you can bring into your routine to kickstart this journey. And the best part? They don't require anything complicated, just a willingness and a little time to connect with yourself. One of the most effective practices is keeping a personal journal. It doesn't need to be fancy, just a notebook where you can write freely about what you're feeling, thinking, and experiencing each day. The goal isn't to write perfect texts, but to honestly record your emotions and thoughts. Over time, you'll start noticing behavior patterns and emotional triggers you might not have noticed before. Another really powerful technique is asking yourself reflective questions. It sounds simple, but taking a moment to think about things like, what truly makes me happy? Or what are my biggest fears? Can give you some valuable insights. For example, have you ever asked yourself why certain situations make you feel so anxious? A lot of the time, just searching for those answers helps you get to know yourself better. And you don't have to answer everything all at once. The important thing is to let these reflections become a natural part of your life. Plus, the practice of mindfulness can be a huge ally in this process. Mindfulness is about being present in the moment, observing what's happening around you and inside you without judgment. Have you noticed how often we just go through the motions without even realizing what we're feeling? When we practice mindfulness, we start to become aware of how we react to different situations, and that gives us more clarity about our behavior. And if you want me to make a video where I explain this technique in more detail, just leave a comment with the word balance. One very important thing is not to be too hard on yourself. Self-knowledge is a journey, not a race with a finish line. Let yourself learn at your own pace, celebrating every small step you take. Our relationships with others can help us get to know ourselves even more, because we don't only discover ourselves by looking inward, but also by observing how we interact with the world around us. No one lives in isolation, and a big part of what we learn about ourselves happens through our interactions with other people. Have you ever noticed how sometimes a conversation with someone close to you can bring out emotions or thoughts you didn't even know were there? That's because relationships act as a mirror. They reflect parts of who we are that, often, we can't see on our own. For example, have you ever gotten annoyed with someone over something that seemed like a small thing, and then, after thinking about it, realized that your reaction had more to do with something inside of you than the other person's behavior? That happens all the time. When we pay attention to these emotional reactions, we can identify areas that need more attention and care. It's like every interaction is an opportunity for self-discovery, from a work conflict to a heart-to-heart conversation with a friend. Another important point is feedback. I know receiving criticism isn't always easy. Sometimes it hurts and messes with our self-esteem. But when we learn to take constructive criticism, we can get some really valuable lessons. Of course, not every piece of feedback needs to be accepted, but hearing different perspectives helps us see areas for improvement that we might not have noticed on our own. A practical tip is, when you get criticism, ask yourself, does this make sense to me? How can I use this information to grow? This approach keeps you from taking it personally and turns criticism into a powerful tool for self-awareness. And we can't forget about our closest relationships like family, close friends, and partners. These are the ones that really stir up our emotions because they involve affection and expectations. Observing how we behave in these relationships, what we expect from others, and how we react to disappointments helps us understand a lot about our values and needs. Personal values are like an internal guide that defines what's important to us. They influence our choices, our behavior, and most importantly, how we see life. When we don't have clarity about our values, we can end up making decisions that leave us frustrated or even lost because we're living based on other people's expectations, not on what really matters to us. But how do we identify our values? A practical way is to reflect on moments when you felt truly happy or, on the flip side, extremely bothered. Ask yourself, what was in that situation that triggered that emotion? For example, if you felt upset about being disrespected in a conversation, that could mean that respect is a core value for you. Or, if you feel fulfilled when helping someone, maybe solidarity is something that holds a lot of weight in your life. Once you identify your values, the next step is to understand how they connect to your life's purpose. Purpose isn't something grand or unreachable. It's simply what makes sense to you, what gives you the drive to get out of bed every day. It can be as simple as taking good care of your family, or as broad as transforming other people's lives through your work. The important thing is that it aligns with your values, because that's the only way you'll truly feel fulfilled. To make it easier, here's a quick exercise for you. Grab a piece of paper and write down 5 values that you consider important. Then, next to each one, jot down how those values show up in your life. This will help you understand what drives you and which choices make sense for you. In the next chapter, we'll talk about how self-awareness is an ongoing process that evolves as life goes on and new experiences come up. After all, knowing yourself isn't a destination, it's a constant journey. After everything we've discussed so far, there's one very important thing I need to tell you. Self-awareness isn't something you'll achieve once and for all, and boom, life solved. Actually, it's a continuous process, a journey we walk throughout our entire lives. And you know what's even more interesting? As we go through new experiences, we discover new things about ourselves. It's like each stage of life brings new challenges and lessons, and we need to rediscover ourselves from time to time. For example, think about who you were 10 years ago. The things you valued, the worries you had, the dreams you held. Chances are a lot has changed, right? That's completely normal because life is always moving, and so are we. That's why it's essential to stay flexible and be open to revisiting your values and beliefs from time to time. It's totally okay to change your mind or even your direction, as long as those changes make sense to you and align with what you believe right now. A practical way to keep self-awareness active is by making it a habit to regularly reflect on your life. It could be through journaling, where you write down your thoughts and feelings, or even in moments of pause, when you allow yourself to sit in silence and observe what's going on inside you. Another tip is to do a periodic self-assessment where you ask yourself, what have I learned about myself in the past few months? Is there anything I'd like to change or improve? This kind of practice keeps you connected to yourself and avoids that feeling of just going through the motions. At the end of the day, self-awareness is a continuous commitment to your own growth. It doesn't have to be perfect, just real. And like any journey, the most important thing is to keep moving forward, one step at a time. We've reached the end of this talk, but really, it's just the beginning of a new journey for you. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's the certainty that self-awareness is the first step in transforming your life. It doesn't matter where you are right now or what you've been through up until now. It's always possible to start. And you know what's even more amazing? This process doesn't have to be complicated. Small daily practices like reflecting on your emotions or writing about your day can make a huge difference over time. Remember when we talked about values and purpose? Identifying what really matters to you and aligning your choices with those principles is what will give you clarity and direction. And when you truly know yourself, decisions become easier, relationships feel lighter, and life gains a whole new meaning. So, I want to make you an invitation. How about starting today? It could be something simple, like answering a reflective question or writing down a feeling you want to understand better. The important thing is to take that first step, because the more you know yourself, the closer you get to living a fulfilling life, with purpose and full of meaning. And don't forget, if you want me to make a video explaining mindfulness better, with practical applications, leave a comment with the word we agreed on. Understand this journey is yours, and only you can walk it. And I guarantee you, it's totally worth it.